There are a million lonely hearts beating in the big city. How do you find the right person in the crowd? How can you make the right impression right away? How can you salvage a blind date going bad? In this episode, we're going to try and answer these matters of the heart. Dating is not just a sport, it's an art.
You don't feel that vibe and you have a connection?
I'm a little excited.
And most of us are amateurs. We go into it blind and trust our luck.
She showed up 20 minutes
I don't know
late.
how it's gonna be.
But luck isn't always enough when it comes to pulling in the big love.
We have a lot in common.
Yes, I'd ask her out again.
You need the right touch and timing and focus and patience, and that's just for starters.
We all carry along in our brains this love map. We call it a love map. And what this love map is an unconscious list of things that you are looking for in a partner. And we develop this as children. And so by the time you go out on a date, you have thousands of separate details that you are looking for in an individual. And any one of them can turn you on or off.
The process of dating is a process of kissing many, many frogs to find the handsome prince or princess.
In this episode, we're going to mix 4 strangers, 2 blind dates, and 1 dating doctor, all to bring you real-life advice from the front lines of love. In less than an hour, Jeffrey Pocock could meet the woman of his dreams, or he could walk into a dating nightmare. Either way, he's up for the adventure.
My friend sent me this thing on the don'ts on a date. It's, there's nothing that I didn't already know, such as don't talk about exes, don't talk about yourself too much, don't brag.
And speaking of confidence, it's not a bad idea to identify what your strengths are.
Generally, one of my strengths is that I'm a good conversationalist, and I can talk about a lot of different things. And you never seem to run out of things to talk about.
In the blind dating game, second guessing is second nature.
So I don't want to go too dressy, nor do I want to go too casual. So I'm even thinking right down to the watches here. I think I'm going to go with this one.
Just a few miles away, the other half of this blind date is also getting ready. Despite some past disappointments, Yvonne is preparing and hoping for the best.
You know, I think I'm fairly attractive. I'm a pretty fun person to be around. I just maybe am attracted to the wrong people, I think, and then maybe I'm giving off the wrong signals, and I don't know.
And even if things don't work out, Yvonne is still hoping to walk away with something from the experience.
I'm hoping to learn tonight a little bit more about how I interact with someone that I don't know, and perhaps what I'm telling the person and portraying to the person is really who I am, and I obviously fascinate them enough that they're going to call me back, and they're going to be so interested in me that I'm obviously not telling too much, but I'm telling enough that gets them interested.
First of all, we're all aware that chemistry is really important and that we can't control it. That somebody's going to take a look at us and our smile and our eyes and our whatever, our body, whatever we bring to the meeting, and they're going to say, yeah, I'm interested, or very nice to meet you, and all kinds of distance, right? We don't want to hear that, very nice to meet you, all kinds of distance. We want someone to look in our eyes and go, you're really something, yeah? That's what we want.
We've met our first couple, Jeffrey and Yvonne.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Now here's couple number 2. They're already battle-hardened veterans from the dating scene. In fact, Jeremy's still got a few things to say about a recent chance at romance.
We go out, and it turns out that she's a smoker, does a ton of drugs, follows this band around like a groupie, and I have to admit, I couldn't wait to get out of that date. That was actually the first time where I didn't enjoy a female's company.
Jeremy isn't the only one nervous about tonight's outcome. His blind date, Keiko, is hoping for the best as well.
I always find blind dates a little exciting, but at the same time it's a little scary because you don't know who the guy is.
Despite dating dead ends, Jeremy and Keiko have not stopped looking for the right person to share dinner. And hopefully, breakfast.
What I look for in a first date is someone who is not serious, who is not expecting to find the one right away, but someone who's willing to see something, to try something new and see if it'll go anywhere, but not someone who's needy and desperate.
The ideal scenario, that she comes in and says, Jeremy, you're a god. I'm so glad we came out. No, but seriously, I think if she came out and we just had a bit of a connection, maybe one day we go for a hike or hang out and see where that takes us, that'd be a good date.
Dating runs on messages, and you send out a message, and that message has to be returned. If you send out enough messages and they're not returned, then you begin to give up.
I do worry about the signals that I send out to people I do. I don't want to lead guys on if I don't feel like I'm attracted to them. But then I am quite shy about it, and I don't know how to go about it without being unnatural, I guess.
Mainly someone that we just hit it off. You know, when you feel that vibe and you have a connection, and the connection is, you can just sense it, where you're not getting sarcasm from the other person. You can tell that person's not anxious to leave because you're annoying them.
On the stress meter, a blind date ranks right up there with, say, getting married or a job interview. So much pressure to impress, so many do's and don'ts to remember, so much potential for humiliation, and the odds seem pretty stacked.
There are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people with whom we could date and mate successfully and happily. There are, on the other hand, probably thousands or millions of people with whom we could not mate successfully.
So will our 4 bold adventurers find that 1 in a million shot at true romance? Now it's their turn to meet each other for the first time. We begin with Jeremy and Keiko.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Awesome.
Hi, my name's Keiko.
Keiko, Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
In these opening minutes, it's quite possible that the date is already over or striking gold. According to sex and romance expert Helen Fisher, as soon as we meet, we start working through a whole series of observations and judgments.
Even before you start to talk to that person, the way you handle your body, whether you walk in a casual way, if you hold your shoulders in a way that shows signs of dominance and personality, they'll already begin to, in their brains, size you up automatically.
No, I never heard about that.
Oh yeah, it was on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All kinds of businessmen will size up somebody within the first 3 minutes. And very often somebody on a date will size you up within the first 3 minutes.
Jeremy and Keiko have decided to get together on neutral ground, an Indian restaurant that neither of them has been to before.
What's good here? Ever been?
No.
No?
I do like Indian food, though.
Yes.
I do like it.
The conversation is a little slow on takeoff, but that's to be expected, with bright lights and a television camera recording every mouthful.
Do you like red wines?
I do like red wine.
Yes?
Yes.
I come from the wine region. Niagara, St. Catharines. That's...
Because I was just like, Europe?
No.
No, not that Niagara's bad.
Your postures, your gestures, your tone of voice, how much you say about yourself, whether you're interesting, these are all extremely important.
I like going to movies like everyone else. I'm a bit of a movie buff.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What kind of movies are you into?
Anything that's different.
On any first date,
it's Egyptian
conversation
stuff,
is a challenge. After all, you're dealing with a stranger.
Just smile and nod.
That's why sometimes it can help to change the scenery.
Yeah?
I
guys, I'm Monica.
I'm Jeremy.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Monica and Keiko.
Nice to meet you.
I think the most important thing to do on the first date, if you want to have a second date, is to do something novel together.
A rock climbing lesson might be just the activity to create a spark between these two.
There you go.
A novelty drives up levels of dopamine in the brain, and dopamine is associated with elation, giddiness, euphoria, focused attention on the individual that you're with. So if you do something that's really arousing, physically, emotionally, intellectually, even spiritually, it's going to be a very memorable occasion.
Very nicely done. Oh, thanks. Is that a little bit harder, easier?
So did the rock climbing spark that all-essential brain chemistry? At least one of them wants a second chance at romance. They've explored conversation, dinner, and rock climbing. But is this blind date hanging by a thread, or is it going to find a solid foothold?
Dinner's horrible. I think the worst thing you could ever do on a date is take her for dinner, because you have that awkward silence. You have to wait for the meal. You have to eat. You have to practice proper etiquette, and it's tricky.
No worries.
And I think all the excitement actually happened when we got rock climbing.
Well, he seems like a really nice guy. He's a good conversationalist. We have a lot in common. He's funny. He has a good sense of humor, which is a plus.
Today met my expectations. The reason it did so is I wasn't sure what to expect, if I was going to be getting someone that would be uneducated or hard to talk to, or maybe their parents wasn't there. And to my surprise, everything was there. I was impressed.
Well, I wouldn't say there's a connection. I don't know if this could lead to more, but he would make a great friend.
If I didn't try to put on any kind of an act, I think we got along well for the first time, and I'm fairly confident that she would be willing to go for a second time with me if I asked her to.
And there's the hard truth of the love game. Two people can be sitting at the same dinner and have totally different dates. While Keiko and Jeremy appear destined to become friends and nothing more, our second couple, Jeffrey and Yvonne, are now taking their shot in the spotlight.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. I'm Yvonne.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Happy Valentine's Day. I got you a little
Oh,
something.
thank you very much. That's so sweet.
Jeff scores some points right off the bat.
They're very pretty. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah.
And right away, they're also both doing something basic and crucial to make that good first impression.
Most people are not attracted to somebody who's unhappy. When you smile, you literally move muscles in the face that trigger the nerves that change brain chemistry. So when you smile, people naturally imitate you, maybe even very fleetingly, and they begin to feel good.
Pleasantries out of the way, the first challenge is keeping the conversation going with someone who is essentially a stranger.
So it's
That can get pretty scary. I know I went shopping there once and had to use the washroom and went into the duty-free store.
A woman will probably say that she talked too much. It's much better that the man does some talking. It's called verbal plumage. Women are better at talking than men are. They are better at finding the right word rapidly. Basic articulation is associated with the female hormone estrogen. And so women are likely to talk. They're more comfortable with conversation.
So what do you do?
I work in research.
It's better if the woman can begin to engage the man in some kind of conversation.
So I must ask what prompted you to do this experience.
Oh. God only knows. I was,
And probably not ask him too much about himself. Women are comfortable talking about themselves. Men are less comfortable. They feel more vulnerable.
And ladies, here's another tip to think about if your date is hesitant to talk about his deepest, darkest secrets over dinner. Don't stare.
Another thing that women do that often makes men uncomfortable is what we call the anchoring gaze. When women are talking to other women, they feel very comfortable staring straight at that woman, even tete-a-tete, very close to the other woman, and engaging in what they regard as very personal conversation. Men can often find that very threatening.
So I go talking to the people that I know in the club, and
You'll often see a man, when you're talking too close and straight at him, and you've got that anchoring gaze, he'll talk to you with his eyes shut, or he'll start to look away from you while he's talking to you.
Because you have forward, side.
When dinner is done, what better way to add a shot of romance than on the dance floor? If there's any chemistry between these two, a quick spin on the dance floor might just bring the passion to the surface. If not, then at least they learned a step or two. And speaking of rhythm, Dr. Fisher has some specific advice for women, especially when a date is getting bogged down. It all comes down to dancing in step.
For example, some men will talk very slowly, and there will be long silences between various sentences. Adopt that posture with him. Instead of filling his sentences in with them and acting overly gay and hilarious, try and really keep his beat. And wait to see when he comes in. He seems to be comfortable with silence. So get into his comfort with silence and pick up his verbal beat as well as his postures and gestures.
Calgary.
And sticking with this idea of blending, Dr. Fisher has another suggestion from her dating bag of tricks to salvage a sinking dinner.
Being in Toronto.
One thing that occasionally can really work is simply imitating a man. When you go out to dinner and you have steak and wine, when he saws at his meat, you saw at your meat. As he picks up his wine, you pick up your wine. You begin to try to move in tandem to a beat.
1 and 2 and 1.
But sometimes, no matter how both parties try, the dance never comes together.
Well, I had a good time. She's a very nice woman, and dinner was delicious. And by the time we got to the dancing, we were more relaxed, and we started to have fun with it.
He'd done the dancing before, and he was really into the dancing, and I had never had, and I was embarrassed, and I was just trying to have fun with it, and I could sense that he was getting a little frustrated. And I think he had more fun dancing with the instructor than me, and, you know, it was just supposed to be fun.
Well, I didn't think I did anything wrong. I felt I had to work at the conversation to keep, to get to know her, to get her to come out of her shyness.
He didn't really seem to ask me too much about me. He focused a lot on himself and really technical aspects of his job. And so that was like totally way above what my knowledge level was.
It was a good date, but I don't think I'd want to go on a second date. I wouldn't want to pursue this because she's really not my type.
Despite the disappointment, Yvonne is doing the smart thing after a bad date, trying to learn something for the next time.
I think if I learned anything, it's to maybe focus on me having the fun and not so much worrying about doing the right thing or saying the right thing or making sure that, you know, the guy's happy. I understand, you know, I'm not there to like ignore the person. You want to be into it. But, you know, I could tell the vibe wasn't going well, but I still went through with the date and I still had a good time myself. And I think before I would have just walked away from that and felt it was a waste of time.
2 dates down and no one in our quartet has scored. Time to bring in an expert and put them under the dating microscope. But will it make a difference in round 3? When Keiko and Jeremy got together for dinner, it became pretty clear that there wouldn't be a repeat performance. The conversation seemed forced, their interests didn't mesh, and even hanging from a rope couldn't save this date from falling out of sight.
It was really awkward, and it was very telling, both with respect to the conversation as well as the body language. It could be just that you
Enter Dr. Date to the rescue. Rebecca Rosenblatt is a sex therapist and broadcaster who specializes in relationships. She sat down first with Keiko to analyze her dating performance.
Yes? I come from the wine region, Niagara, from St. Catharines. So it's...
Because I was just like, Europe?
No.
No, not that Niagara's bad.
Here I noticed that when he talks about regional wines and you were thinking of European stuff, it almost felt like you pulled back a little bit and he wasn't sophisticated enough. And I saw your hand, your palm started to face down, which sort of meant you were assuming control of the conversation and closing off to him. Did you feel like he was not as sophisticated as you at this point?
I didn't think he was unsophisticated, but I did feel like I knew there wasn't an attraction right away, so I guess that's why maybe that's why I was showing that.
Here's a key rule to remember. You may think you're hiding what you really feel about your date, but your body language can give it all away. If you're not thrilled with your date, they're going to know soon enough.
So where else have you traveled to, other than Japan and Europe?
I did go to Greece.
Greece.
Now, did you notice here that he's trying to ask you a lot of questions and he keeps picking topics. He almost feels flustered. He doesn't know where to go there. And I noticed that you're not really asking him that many questions about himself. The conversations have sort of geared towards being about you. Did you notice his body language there? He's sort of like, okay, then what do I ask her now?
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Oh boy.
Now, did you notice that you didn't really have anything to say to him on the send-off? Like, good luck, be careful, it's scary, hope you have fun, hang on tight. I noticed that you didn't say something that you would normally say when we're trying to create opportunities to connect with each other. So again, I'm sensing that there wasn't that chemistry there. I really liked that, the way you were cheering him, and it was very interactive. I don't know if you were really getting into him at this point or just because there was such a huge physical distance between you two, he was way up there. But I noticed that you were cheering and you were clapping and you were really connecting with him in a warm way.
You're doing awesome.
At this point, there actually appears to be a little bit of chemistry. But as Rebecca noticed, there are more sparks coming from Jeremy.
Yeah, I sensed that. That's why I felt so bad.
Well, this is it. If you don't feel the same way about the individual, then sometimes you tend to hold back more because you don't want to give off the wrong idea. So sometimes it's not even necessarily our MO that's going wrong. It's we're deliberately trying not to connect.
Right.
So I was kind of getting that sense, and that's what I'd said to you as well. That it's hard to tell how much of it is just your personality and how much of it is the fact that you didn't feel any chemistry, so you didn't want to give him the wrong impression. Had it been an individual you felt the chemistry with, you might have responded differently.
Of course, there were times when Keiko appeared relaxed and friendly. And that's the way everyone wants to feel on a date, from start to finish.
Not to scare you, Erin.
Yeah, no, thanks.
So it wasn't like it was a complete bust. And Rebecca has some tips for Keiko's next date.
If I could make a couple suggestions, one would be to have a fair exchange, make it more of a give and take process, the conversation rather than the conversation always coming back to you, because that was the one thing that I did notice, whether he was asking questions or you were talking, it was always coming back to you. We really didn't learn anything about him.
Actually, I agree with a lot of things you said after watching myself. It seemed like I was talking a lot about myself. I actually feel bad about that.
There's always room for improvement, and Keiko is going to get a second shot. But for now, it's Jeffrey on the hot seat and Dr. Date holding the scalpel.
So I was reading the business section of a newspaper, of all things, and they had...
Now, I noticed here that you were busy looking at your menu while she was talking. Generally, when someone is talking, we look at them and we can only look away when we're talking ourselves. And yet she was talking and I noticed you were really busy. You were more into the menu than you were into her.
I think it's just actually...
And guess what? This breach of etiquette did not go unnoticed at the dinner table.
And there was actually one part during the dinner where he had the menu right in front of my face. And he was looking at the menu, and I didn't know where to look.
Would you even recommend having two things?
You can have two, so I can have four.
At this point, you're not just looking at the menu, it's physically between you two. Mm-hmm. It's the proverbial, when mom and dad are not speaking to each other, dad pulls the newspaper in front of his face and he doesn't even have to, she can't even look at him. So it's not just that you're not looking at her. At this point, you physically have a barrier. Yeah.
You think she's picking up on that?
You know what? She may not consciously be picking up on it, but body language is so subliminally, it's hardwired into us. We pick up these signals and the brain processes it very quickly. It doesn't even register into our conscious brain, but we respond to what has been processed. It's very, very fast.
Another day was a friend of mine was setting me up with somebody she knew. And
Right.
she was...
What inspired you to talk about a former date? Now, if you'll notice, everything else you've been sharing about yourself, she's pretty animated in how she asks you questions. She's just, oh my gosh, like she's not really, her interest, she's not interested in hearing more. So let's see what happens.
What's the third one? Do you want to hear? Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just found that I had to carry the bulk of the conversation because she was not a conversationalist and she was very shy. She was very nervous. And then when she did talk, her stories were just like, you know, kind of, her conversation just kind of died.
Low energy.
And I'm thinking, well, this is not really exciting conversation. She leads a boring life out in Oshawa, and I was thinking, well, I was looking for somebody who was a Toronto girl who was a bit more worldly and
outgoing. And
yeah, that type of thing. And so I felt, oh boy, I got to pull another one out of the bag here.
I'm the one. Look in his eyes. I'm the one. I'm the two.
Now, this is a good example of her being more into you than you are into her, because she's basically making eye contact, even though she doesn't look very comfortable with the dance itself. Her body language is fairly rigid, and she does look visibly uncomfortable, but she keeps her eyes on you the whole time. And you're more into dancing gracefully than into her.
Good dating is all about the basics: eye contact, paying attention, sharing the airtime, making an effort. But the basics don't come easy. Have Jeffrey and Keiko learned anything from Dr. Date's surgical strike? Can they apply it when they're sent on a date, this time with each other?
Dating runs on messages, and you send out a message, and that message has to be returned. If you send out enough messages and they're not returned, then you begin to give up. And people can miss their cue.
No one said this was going to be easy. Remember the first round? Jeffrey and Yvonne's date was a disappointment for both of them. Jeffrey had issues with eye contact, and Yvonne could see that he appeared uninterested in what she had to say.
I mean, there was this degree of awkwardness right as soon as I met her for dinner, and the conversation was a little bit tough at first, and to be perfectly honest, she wasn't really my type.
I could sense that he was getting a little frustrated, and I think he had more fun dancing with the instructor than me, and, you know, it was just supposed to be fun.
The Keiko-Jeremy dinner held such great promise, but these two never seemed to find a comfort zone.
I think we got along well for the first time, and I'm fairly confident that she would be willing to go for a second time with me.
I just didn't feel like there was a connection. I don't know if this could lead to a relationship. He would make a great friend, but I don't know if this could go further than that.
No, I'm not a big fan of funk.
Despite the differing opinions, it was obvious to Dr. Date that they would never be more than buddies. But Rebecca does have hope for Jeffrey and Keiko, and she thinks they're ready for a second chance at love together. They've each had a session with the good doctor, and now they're on their own. Let's see how they do.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. My name's Keiko.
Keiko?
Keiko.
Oh, okay, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
So, yeah, here, I'll grab
You want to sit there?
No flowers this time, and he's late. But it ain't over until the camera crew goes home.
I was sort of late. I got my car towed. Yeah, as soon as I got here, I let the car thing go, and then I was really happy to meet her, and right away we, I think, got on quite well, and she's quite interesting, and we had a lot to talk about. Oh well, cheers. Here's to
Meet your family.
When Keiko met Dr. Date, she was advised to ask more questions of her date and act or even pretend to be interested in what he says.
Usually what I do is I let the guy try to impress me just by listening to what he has to say, but I think I have to be more intuitive into what he's saying, try to ask more questions and delve into what he's more like, and try to sound like I'm interested in him so that he's probably going to be more responsive towards me.
And look at this. 5 minutes into the date and they look like a couple. Keiko is working the smile at the right time and even laughing.
So how about you? What do you do in the big city here?
I'm an embryologist.
Now the real test. Can Jeffrey hold eye contact while Keiko is talking?
The first date, yeah, I didn't have that interest, but I was trying to be polite. And this date, there was more of a connection, and I was interested in her and what she was about and what she was talking to me about. And so it just was natural to be more open to her.
Since the conversation was going so well, we decided that we would push our luck and send these two off for a walking tour of the museum.
You're more well-read than I am in Greek and Roman civilization.
2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use that ratio. Try to be attentive and try to draw out the other person and see what they have to say instead of just trying to impress them.
Oh, really?
Jeffrey obviously got the message. He seemed interested in everything Keiko had to say, and maybe more importantly, he kept eye contact. As for Keiko, she seemed much more relaxed this time.
I was trying to ask more questions, as she was saying, and I was trying to be more interactive, so I did use most of it, but at the same time I was being very watchful of how I was using my hands because she mentioned that, so.
She smiled at the right time, and she made sure the conversation didn't keep coming back to her. All in all, it seemed to be a pretty successful date.
I really had a good time. He's really good to talk to. We have a lot in common, and he's very interesting. I really enjoyed his company.
We had a good time together, and we didn't really talk about whether there would be another date or anything like that.
Based on what I observed, I thought he and I were really compatible, at least personality-wise, yeah.
I really don't think that even in one date there's going to be a love connection just like that. So that's maybe just from where I'm coming from. Even if it was the woman of my dreams, I don't think I'd have a love connection immediately.
I'd give myself between a 1 and 10. I'd give myself an 8 on this date, yeah. I think I did better than I did last time.
Well, what I learned from the entire experience was that being open, I think is very important, because one never knows when you're going to meet the person that you really connect with, and it's good training, so to speak, to finally, when you do meet the person that you really connect with, then you're on.
Connecting, that might be tougher to do than the actual dating. But you never know. Your matchmaker might be a cab ride away. New York City. Like it says in the song, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But meeting your soulmate or even your next date, now that's a different story altogether.
This New York is tough city. We have 3 to 4 girls to each man in New York. Half of the guys gays, and the other half they are thinking about it.
I live in Seattle, but I'm wanting to move to New York. I said, no, stay there. You're gonna have more guys and more girls.
Meet Ahmed Ibrahim, the president of New York City's most exclusive dating service.
I'm a psychologist when I have to, a comedian when I have to, please. Have mercy on me.
The only way to join this unique Lonely Hearts Club is to flag his taxi down and jump in. He's been driving a cab for more than 2 decades, but these days, Ahmed is better known as the cabbie matchmaker.
How you matchmake passenger? I said, I got my digital recorder. If you are interested, you tell me what kind of guy you're looking for and how old are you, and I record it. As soon as I find a nice guy, I'm gonna call you before I give him your number. If you said yes, yes, and you do your homework.
Ahmed is being far too modest. To get a real feel for how he creates matches, you have to see him in action.
Well, I start to joke around. Hi, you look gorgeous. Where are you going? You having a date tonight? You look fabulous. Are you Miss America tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
You look fabulous.
Thank
okay,
you.
What's your name? So, then you start talking, you start to ask a few questions like your age and your name and how tall you are, what kind of job you do.
You're doing waitress for now.
I'm waitressing in New York.
Okay, and you got a black hair, short black hair?
It's slightly longer than shoulder length.
Uh-huh.
I have gone out with a lot of guys.
Oh.
I'm in my late 30s. I've gone with a lot of American guys, and I finally had to go to Iceland to find somebody.
Armed with his trusty digital voice recorder, our matchmaking cabbie turns on the charm, and it doesn't take long before he begins to put together a profile.
What kind of guy are you looking for?
Well, definitely someone who doesn't have a girlfriend, single.
All I can say to you is, boyfriend, hook me up with, quality, humor, looks. Hard body helps.
Yeah, but integrity.
Integrity, honesty,
right.
morals, and values.
Good job is good, Someone who's not too controlling. I can't deal with controlling people. I like to be me and have my fun.
I will do.
Kibitzing aside, some of Ahmed's clients tend to be a little more serious about what they're looking for.
A guy who's really close with his family is always a plus. Somebody who really respects their parents, who values their opinion. Because you're right. I mean, it does affect them as a person in general.
No, I like someone who's funny, spontaneous, and generous. They're my big things that they have to exist, and if they don't, forget about it.
With a good job, educated guy.
Oh yeah, good job, whatever, bit of money, yeah, of course.
Basically, give me the hard body, a sense of humor, and a few bucks to match, and
that's it. It's like bingo.
Yeah, that's enough.
He doesn't charge for his service, but not everyone who gets in Ahmed's cab qualifies to join the Matchmaker Club.
There is a lot of people is completely out. I'm gonna record them. I'm gonna make them happy. But a guy, all the men looking for Britney Spears or 21 is out. A gold digger, they are out. Below 25 years old, they don't need my service. They can find a guy easily. My priority is maybe 27 and up. These people looking for serious relationship.
But what we're looking for is
serious.
Not the hard older, but the real deal, right here in the Big Apple.
Okay, for the tape recorder.
It's a pretty simple process. Once your grueling backseat interview is over, the matchmaker goes to work.
What are we doing?
And hopefully, before you know it, you get a call from Mr. or Ms. Right.
Hi Diana, how are you? This is Ahmed, the matchmaker taxi driver. And I really like to talk to you about a friend of mine who was sitting in the front seat last night. He really loves your spirit as a lady, and he loves to take you out for a drink.
The only thing working harder than Ahmed's taxi meter is his cell phone. If he's not picking up, he's hooking up.
She got brown hair, brown eyes, she's beautiful. And she works in advertising, 49th Street and Madison Avenue. He'd be very lucky to have her as a girlfriend. And he's looking for the real deal. And she's looking for the real deal too. You see? You see how lucky? So we don't pick up customer, but we make somebody already, all right? That's really fun. I love it. My success rate, I don't know, because I started in end of February, March. I bought few dozens. Like last night when I was driving, I get the guy text message me. Thank you so much, I will call her this weekend. I don't follow, I don't charge. So, but so far so good.
You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who enjoys their job more than Ahmed. And maybe that's why people open up to him. Everyone we saw in his cab had a smile on their face.
You're gonna be the top of my priority, believe me. Okay, absolutely. I never thought about, I'm gonna be on TV or one day they're gonna write about me. I always do it for my own fun. A lot of people said, oh, you got to call this show, you got to call this show. I said, listen, I'm doing this for me. Because if I'm having fun, I can drive more.
My God, I picked the fucking best cab to get into tonight.
You are fun,
You know, you were the kind of passenger make my day and make me love my job when I pick up somebody like you.
But does the system work? And what kind of people have hooked up from the backseat of a yellow cab? You might be surprised. It's another night on the town for Ahmed, the matchmaking cab driver. The streets of New York can be a lonely place, but his backseat provides hope. It all started when he picked up a young, single, frustrated woman.
I was asking her, you know, I think we have a lot of common together, but she said, like, what? She said, like, you know, I like to drive a taxi, you like to take a taxi, maybe we go out for a falafel or something. Then we keep laughing, and before she get out, she said, Ahmed, find me a nice guy. This city sucks. So I said, okay, and I completely forget about it. 3-4 days later, I was in Battery Park City, I pick up this guy, and he's a stockbroker. And he told me I'm 27 and I just bought a house in Morristown, and in a few weeks I'm gonna look for a steady relationship. So I remember this girl, I have no why. So I said, listen, I have a nice girl for you.
And he's been matchmaking ever since.
What kind of guy are you looking for?
It's a nice guy. I don't know.
What age?
Age group. Like 37 to like 46 or 7.
You get in conversation.
Most of the passengers who decide to participate on this night are women. That's not surprising to Ahmed. He says the ladies tend to be more open to his service.
That's what I always say. If you don't laugh in my car, damn it, I'm not gonna charge it. You know, take a ride a camel or something, you know what I mean?
Most of the girls, you know, they said, okay, you know, this is New York. And they say, why not? But the guys, they got their ego. You know, come on, I'm gonna get a girl from a taxi driver.
I'm so glad if they go out with this guy, because this girl, she's a killer.
It's one thing pouring out your needs and wants, not to mention giving a cab driver your phone number. But does it work?
I tell people the story, and they cannot believe that I actually gave the cab driver my cell phone number.
But she did, and Natalie and Marty are now a couple. It all started in the back of a Ford.
This cab driver starts talking to me like no other cab driver's talked to me ever, because most don't really say anything. And this guy's telling me all about how he decorates his cab for Christmas and he picks people up for their birthdays. And eventually, toward the end of the ride, he asked me, so do you want to meet a girl? And my initial response was, I absolutely do not want to meet a girl through my cab driver, you know. I won't be able to explain it to my mom, and my friends will think I'm crazy.
And that actually was the first thing that Marty said in the first message that he left for me was, you know, hi, this is, you know, Marty Karaman. I got your number from my good friend Ahmed, the taxi driver. And during our first conversation, he said, I can't believe you gave your number to a taxi driver. And I said, well, I know, it was kind of a weird thing to do, but what the hell?
Yeah, I questioned your logic.
Yeah, you did.
They make it sound so easy, but according to our matchmaker, Natalie was very particular about what she wanted.
Natalie was very picky, was very hard to please. He got to be good looking, he got to be very good in the dance floor, and a good job, and funny, and everything.
It was a very good day.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
Because people try, you know, online dating and being set up by their friends and all that. I mean, you talk to people and it's exhausting in this city. I think it's hard to meet people. So as soon as people saw that something like this could possibly work, you know.
I think it's actually easy to meet people. It's just really hard to meet like people that...
Decent, yeah, people that you would want to date.
You'd want to hang out with.
Exactly.
All I care about, nice guy, he can treat you with respect.
Nice guy, he doesn't have to be perfect.
A blind date, whether it begins in the back of a cab or on a television show, is never easy. It's like setting off on a long drive without a map. But we gave it a shot anyway. You'll remember we started with Keiko and Jeremy over Indian food. Apparently, no amount of wine could help this date. It was uphill from the beginning. Up next, Jeffrey and Yvonne did the old soft shoe. But unfortunately, there was more chemistry between the pupil and the teacher. Then we took it one step further and decided to send Keiko and Jeffrey off for some one-on-one with the date doctor and then on a date together.
So you have another date tomorrow. If I could make a couple suggestions, one would be to have a fair exchange, make it more of a give and take process.
What was that, 500 BC?
Same old stuff.
And if it's not going where you want it to go, be honest, be polite. Good luck with whatever it is that she's most excited and animated about, and she knows that this is not going anywhere at that point. But hopefully, it'll be more exciting ending than that for you tomorrow.
And did the tips pay off? Well, they didn't run away from each other. In fact, once the camera stopped rolling, they both disappeared back into the museum to continue their date. While Jeffrey and Keiko decide what happens next, somewhere out there on the mean streets, a Cupid cabbie is doing his best to create sparks in the back seat.
Sometimes guys are like taxis. When you're looking for one, they don't come along. But I guess when you're not looking for one, sometimes they come along.
Art.
You don't you feel that vibe and you have a connection?
I'm a little excited.
And most of us are amateurs. We go into it blind and trust our luck.
She showed up 20 minutes
You don't know
late.
how it's going to be.
But luck isn't always enough when it comes to pulling in the big love.
We have a lot in common.
Yes, I'd ask her out again.
You need the right touch and timing and focus and patience, and that's just for starters.
We all carry along in our brains this love map. We call it a love map. And what this love map is an unconscious list of things that you are looking for in a partner. And we develop this as children. And so by the time you go out on a date, you have thousands of separate details that you are looking for in an individual. And any one of them can turn you on or off.
The process of dating is a process.
Signals, and I don't know.
And even if things don't work out, Yvonne is still hoping to walk away with something from the experience.
I'm hoping to learn tonight a little bit more about how I interact with someone that I don't know, and perhaps what I'm telling the person and portraying to the person is really who I am, and I obviously fascinate them enough that they're going to call me back, and they're going to be so interested in me that I'm obviously not telling too much, but I'm telling enough that gets them interested.
First of all, we're all aware that chemistry is really important and that we can't control it. That somebody's going to take a look at us and our smile and our eyes and our whatever, our body, whatever we bring to the meeting, and they're going to say, yeah, I'm interested, or very nice to meet you, and all kinds of distance, right? We don't want to...
And you never seem to run out of things to talk about.
In the blind dating game, second guessing is second nature.
So I don't want to go too dressy, nor do I want to go too casual. So I'm even thinking right down to the watches here. I think I'm going to go with this one.
Just a few miles away, the other half of this blind date is also getting ready. Despite some past disappointments, Yvonne is preparing and hoping for the best.
You know, I think I'm fairly attractive. I'm a pretty fun person to be around. I just maybe am attracted to the wrong people, I think, and then maybe I'm giving off the wrong...
Of kissing many, many frogs to find the handsome prince or princess.
In this episode, we're going to mix 4 strangers, 2 blind dates, and 1 dating doctor, all to bring you real-life advice from the front lines of love. In less than an hour, Jeffrey Pocock could meet the woman of his dreams, or he could walk into a dating nightmare. Either way, he's up for the adventure.
My friend sent me this thing on the don'ts on a date. It's, I mean, it's nothing that I didn't already know, such as don't talk about exes, don't talk about yourself too much, don't brag.
And speaking of confidence, it's not a bad idea to identify what your strengths are.
Generally, one of my strengths is that I'm a good conversationalist, and I can talk about a lot of different things.
There are a million lonely hearts beating in the big city. How do you find the right person in the crowd? How can you make the right impression right away? How can you salvage a blind date going bad? In this episode, we're going to try and answer these matters of the heart. Dating is not just a sport, it's an